Question 41. Napoleon, a karate master, wants to demonstrate to a group of children how he breaks a wooden board in half with one karate chop. The kids are amazed and ask him how to now chop a concrete block in half. If Napoleon is able to successfully complete this request, he will have demonstrated what? What is Napoleon trying to accomplish? He needs to karate chop this wooden board, and then he needs to karate chop the concrete block. So he clearly needs to generalize this karate chop. If he's unable to generalize from stimuli to stimuli, well, he's not going to be able to break this concrete block in half, and he'll probably hurt his hand. But if he is able to complete this request from the kids to break this concrete block in half, what did he demonstrate? Did he demonstrate response generalization, stimulus generalization, maintenance, or overgeneralization? Well, we predicted the answer to be generalization. However, that's not one of our choices. Now, response generalization and stimulus generalization are choices, so we're likely going to be picking between A and B. Why is it not maintenance? Well, maintenance is being able to do a skill that's already known when teaching stops. We're not quite sure if Napoleon can do this skill yet. Overgeneralization is engaging in responses outside of the trained environment at inappropriate times. In this case, karate chopping the concrete block is appropriate. So therefore, we're dealing with some sort of generalization. So it comes down to, is it response generalization or stimulus generalization? To determine the difference, you need to ask yourself one question. How many responses am I dealing with? If I'm dealing with one response across multiple stimuli, I'm dealing with stimulus generalization. If I'm dealing with multiple responses for one stimulus, I'm dealing with response generalization. So in this case, how many responses are we dealing with? Just one, just a karate chop. We want to see, can he generalize the karate chop to multiple stimuli? If Napoleon is able to do that, he will have demonstrated stimulus generalization. 42. Many people become very excited when they start learning a new skill. For example, when someone starts to learn how to play piano, they typically will want to play for hours every day. However, as time passes, that desire starts to fade away. What is the most likely explanation for this? I think we can all can relate to this, right? You start something, you're very excited, you want to do it all the time. And as you do it, if you don't really love it, or as things come up, the desire kind of goes away. Okay, you play it all the time, all the time, all the time. And then slowly but surely, you start playing less and less and less. What is the most likely explanation for that? Are you A, deprived? Well, no, deprivation means what? Not having enough of something. You clearly have enough piano because this person wants to play for hours every day. So they can play, assumingly, almost as much as they want. They're certainly not deprived of the piano. Are they satiated on the piano? Sure. The value of playing piano is what? It's decreasing. As we satiate on a consequence, that value starts to decrease. So as we satiate on this piano, the value of playing this piano starts to go down. It's a motivating operation question. So what is likely happening is this person, or in this case, the general someone, is starting to satiate on this piano, and the quote unquote desire or motivation starts to fade away. Is punishment involved? Well, we don't have any indication that punishment played a part in this. All we know is they play piano a lot, and now their desire or motivation is starting to fade away. So satiation is just going to be a better answer than punishment. And then poor self-control. Self-control is a misnomer, right? Self-control is really how the environment is affecting our behavior. So we're not going to be picking D. The most likely explanation for this, the best answer, is going to be this person is satiating on the piano. The motivation to play is decreasing. It's an abolishing operation. 43. Walter's business partner, Jesse, refuses to complete his work in a timely manner. This is starting to impact customer satisfaction and profit margin. Walter decides he will try different types of reinforcement and punishment on Jesse. What is the dependent variable in this scenario? All right, so we have an IV, DV question, independent variable, dependent variable question. When you're first starting out, I find that IVs and DVs can sometimes be difficult to really grasp and retain. But once you have them down, you kind of never forget them, right? So an IV and a DV, what's the difference? One independent variable, right, is not changing. It's what we're manipulating, okay? But it's not changing based on something else. We're simply adding, removing, manipulating that independent variable. The dependent variable is going to be that behavior that we're focused on. The dependent variable hopefully will change as we introduce our independent variables. That's really what we're hoping for when we introduce IVs, is that we can see some sort of functional relation. So in this case, what is the IV? Well, the IV is going to be the reinforcement and the punishment. Walter's going to be manipulating reinforcement, adding reinforcement, manipulating punishment, adding, removing punishment, trying to change what? Trying to change Jesse's work, right? Jesse's work is what is dependent on the IVs. So in this case, what is the dependent variable? Is it the reinforcement? Is it the punishment? Is it both the reinforcement and punishment? Or is it Jesse's task completion? Well, we know it's not A, B, and C because those are our independent variables. Those are the things we are manipulating. Those are the things we're adding, taking away. The dependent variable is going to change, hopefully, based on our IVs. So the dependent variable is going to be Jesse's task completion. Hopefully, we can change Jesse's task completion by adding and removing our IVs, which in this case are the reinforcement and punishment. 44. Using the table below, calculate the mean count per interval IOA. Inter-observer question. Don't panic about IOA. You might see one, maybe two IOA questions on the exam. I'd be surprised if you saw any more than that. And really, typically, it's just simple calculations. So on our study guide, we've got some examples of the different types you might see. I would focus on these maybe last, okay? You need to know what IOA is and why it's important. But doing the exact calculations, don't spend a ton of time learning this stuff, okay? Additionally, the names of each IOA kind of tells you what you're doing, okay? So for example, when we're finding the mean count per interval IOA, all we're doing is finding the average count per interval, okay? So how do we find that? Well, first, we need to get the total count for intervals 1, 2, and 3. And how do we find total count? We just divide the smaller count by the larger count and multiply that by 100. So if we divide 3 by 4 and multiply that by 100, what will we get? We are going to get 75%. If we divide 1 by 2 and multiply that by 100, what are we going to get? 50%. And if we divide 5 divided by 5 and multiply that by 100, we're going to get 100%. So we have our total counts for each interval. Now all we do is add that up and find the average. So we add 75 plus 50 plus 100, divide by 3, you get 75%. Again, all that is laid out on the study guide. Don't stress over the IOAs. Don't kill yourself memorizing or rememorizing the calculations. Okay, know what IOA is, know why it's important. Do a few examples of each, okay, and try to focus on other things, right? People stress too much about the IOA exact calculations. Again, once you know total count IOA, finding the mean and finding the exact count per intervals, okay, become a lot easier because it's right in the name what you're doing. That being said, our answer to 44 is going to be 75%. We simply found our percentages for each, added those up, divided by 3, found the average. 45, Better Outcomes ABA Clinic has 5 treatment rooms. Each treatment room is furnished with different tables, chairs, and decor than the other treatment rooms. RBTs rotate treatment rooms every week, but their treatment plans stay the same. What type of generalization procedure does this most closely represent? So we know we have several different types of generalization interventions. As BCBAs, we should program for generalization, something that we often forget to do, but we have different strategies we can use. In this case, this clinic is making all their treatment rooms look different. So what type of generalization procedure are they using? Are they using a general case procedure? Well, in a general case analysis, you are identifying every possible variable that could occur in some sort of generalization situation. All this clinic is doing is changing the color of the furniture and the chairs and the decor. That is nowhere near a general case analysis, right? It is nowhere near identifying all the possible variables and scenarios in a situation. So A is out. B, train loosely. So let's talk about train loosely versus multiple exemplar training. The big difference here is training loosely is altering non-critical stimuli. In this case, tables, chairs, and decor are for the most part non-critical for most behaviors. Now it alters the environment, but they're not very critical. Multiple exemplar, on the other hand, is identifying different versions, different topographies, different types of stimuli, different responses that are more critical, okay, in our responses. That's the key difference between train loosely and multiple exemplar. In other words, train loosely is non-critical. You can consider multiple exemplar critical, okay, to what you're trying to generalize. So are we training loosely or are we using multiple exemplar training? Well, of course, we're training loosely, right? We're using non-critical stimuli. We're altering them. We're changing colors. Very simple things. However, effective because you are changing the overall environment, making it a generalization environment. And then indiscriminable contingencies, just meaning not letting the learner be aware of when reinforcement is coming and where it's coming from. Not what's occurring here. We're simply altering non-critical values in our environment to promote generalization. We are B, training loosely. 46, a new batch of interns were hired at a law firm as summer associates. The interns are hardworking and capable of completing the tasks assigned to them. This week, the owner of the law firm is in the office for the first time since the intern started. He tells his assistant that he was disappointed with the intern's productivity during that week. What is the most behavior analytic explanation for the owner's disappointment? Before you jump to your answer choices, evaluate this question and make a prediction. I think the biggest mistake I see when I'm tutoring or when I'm helping others prepare is they read the questions too quickly and they try to answer the questions too quickly. This is a rather long question with quite a lot going on. Process it, predict, and then go to your answer choices. So what do we know? We know we have a new batch of interns. We know they're hardworking and capable of completing tasks assigned to them. We know the owner is back in the office for the first time since they started. And now all of a sudden, he's disappointed with their productivity. What changed? What changed in this case? Well, the owner is now there. So if the owner is affecting the work or the behavior of his interns, what could possibly be happening? A, the interns were misreporting their ability to complete tasks. Okay, maybe. But is this really a behavior analytic explanation? No, right? We're looking for something behavior analytic. How can we explain this using a behavior analytic concept? What about the owner is too harsh on the interns? Again, no, right? How do you measure, observe too harsh? You can't, okay? We don't know anything about how the owner treats them anyway. C, the presence of the owner altered the intern's productivity. Absolutely. Is that possible? Sure. What is that term called? Reactivity. Maybe the interns reacted to the boss being there for the first time ever. Reactivity is a very powerful thing, a very real thing that severely impacts behavior. So far C is the only behavior analytic explanation we have for this behavior change. And then D, the interns are poorly trained. What do we know from the question? We know that the interns are hardworking and capable, okay? So they are capable, and all of a sudden their productivity is less than the desirable. The most behavior analytic explanation for that change is reactivity. In other words, the presence of the owner altered the intern's productivity. 47. What is the final step in a skill acquisition plan? Think about a skill acquisition plan, sometimes called our programs, okay? In a skill acquisition plan, we're picking a target, setting goals, we're taking baseline, we're choosing measurements, we're measuring, collecting data, and then what? What is our final step in that whole process? Is it data collection? Well, no, data collection comes before what? Data collection comes even before analyzing the data. You don't just collect the data and move on. Now you have to analyze it. So data collection is certainly not the final step. What about data review and plan adjustment? Sure. What do we do after we collect all the data? Well, we have to review it. We have to analyze it. And then what do we do once we analyze it? We make determinations if that plan needs to be changed or if it can stay the same. After that, we go back to square one, which is picking a target, et cetera, et cetera. So the final step in our plan is going to be reviewing our data and adjusting the plan as needed. Why is selecting a goal not our final step? Well, that goal, or even D, a new target behavior, okay, is going to lead to what? It's going to lead to picking measurement. It's going to lead to actually collecting baseline, actually collecting data. So that occurs well before the final step in our plan. The final thing we need to do in this plan is review and analyze our data and then make any necessary adjustments, if needed, to the plan. 48. Food tolerance is something that is often addressed in various types of therapies, including applied behavior analysis. Many times, a contingency will be put in place that says the subject is not allowed to eat dessert until they eat their vegetables. This is considered the use of what? What are we doing here? Ask yourself, what type of intervention are we using? We are telling the child, if you eat your vegetables, then you get dessert. We are using the prospect of engaging in a more desirable behavior, like eating dessert, only when you engage in a less desirable behavior, like eating vegetables. So what is this considered? Is this the Premack principle? Absolutely. That is the definition of the Premack principle. Is this also known as Grandma's law? Yes, right? Grandma's law. If you eat your veggies, then you get your dessert. The same thing as our Premack principle. The opportunity to engage in a more desirable behavior is used as reinforcement for engaging in a less desirable behavior. Now, what about a high probability request sequence? How do we run a high probability request sequence? Well, in this case, it would be, let's say all of these are known behaviors, and we tell our client to clap their hands, touch their nose, point to the dog, eat their vegetables. That is a high probability request sequence. Trying to evoke high probability behaviors, high response rate behaviors, and then asking the client to engage in a low probability behavior. But that's not what's occurring here. A simple contingency was set up using dessert or the opportunity to eat dessert as reinforcement for eating their vegetables. So our answer is going to be D, both A and B. 49, the policy at your company is to assign an RBT to every assessment. The BCBA conducts the assessment while the RBT assists the BCBA. Today, you ask the RBT to observe the client and record any events that happen before, during, and after potential target behaviors. The RBT is conducting what? Very easy question. Okay, you should be able to answer this question in 20 seconds. One of the easiest questions you'll see. If you don't know the answer to this almost immediately, go back and review measurement. What is the RBT doing? The RBT is looking at events that happen before, during, and after, otherwise known as ABC. So the RBT is conducting what? Is the RBT conducting frequency recording? Is the RBT counting anything? Not as far as we know, so we can eliminate frequency recording. Is the RBT conducting permanent product recording? Are they measuring the product of behavior? No, they're actually gathering antecedent and consequence data, not just the product. Are they conducting a functional analysis? Well, we hope not, right? RBTs shouldn't be conducting functional analysis. In addition, they're not manipulating antecedents and consequences. They're simply observing and recording antecedents and consequences. So the RBT is conducting what? ABC recording, D. Very straightforward question. Not every question is going to be that hard. Okay, there's a lot of questions on the exam. There's 185, right? So 100 of those might be very easy. Okay, don't overthink it. Okay, answer them to the best of your ability. And then 50, new research indicates that a diet consisting of only fruits and vegetables can help remediate deficits associated with intellectual disabilities. In response, a group of researchers at Harvard University began recruiting participants for a study that would include a group eating only fruits and vegetables and a control group. These researchers are adhering to what assumption of science? Are these scientists just being jerks, right? Are they just saying, well, you have this research and we're just going to retry it to make sure you're right? No, this is a basic assumption of science. It's what keeps science strong. It's what helps us advance science. So if they are taking this known research, asking themselves, well, let's see if this is really true, and then conducting their own research, what are they doing? Are they A, engaging in philosophical doubt? Yes, philosophical doubt is essentially questioning everything. Questioning known theories, questioning unknown theories, questioning known research, and continuing trying to test that research and trying to evolve that research so we can all get better. These researchers are adhering to philosophical doubt for the research of diets consisting of fruits and vegetables helping intellectual disabilities. Why is it not technological? Well, technological means repeatable. Okay. Now, if the Harvard University researchers write up their study in a way that's replicable, then maybe that's going to be technological, but that's not what we're dealing with here, right? What about determinism? Behavior happens for a reason. Maybe, right? But we're not really looking at the behavior so much as the actual research itself, right? This research on the diet. They are just engaging in simple, okay, let me see if what you found is actually true. Philosophical doubt. And then generality, are they trying to generalize anything? No, of course not. So our answer here is going to be A, philosophical doubt.